Nick, we are on episode 6, half a dozen of the Clutch Culture podcast.
Hey, I got to tell you something. I didn't know we'd even get 6 in the bag here.
Whoa, what?
I
That's
didn't
news
know.
to me.
I didn't know. I didn't know. We had to see how it went.
That's hilarious. Well, the fiery dumped work initially. I'm catching up finally to where all of our shorts are pretty accurate to just a few days behind episodes dropping. But the first 5, man, I mean, I would pat myself on the back and saying we did a good job of just getting to it and then talking about what we know and talking the shit that we know how to talk and getting people engaged. And I have surprised myself. How do you feel about it?
Yeah, I think I can't believe all the interaction. I think one of the things that you and I firmly believe in is that there's been a sort of like a closed loop of automotive talk where you're kind of hearing the same things over and over again, and now I think we're getting a lot of interaction because people are hearing, especially obviously let's talk about, people seem very passionate, let's say, about the EV conversation.
Yeah.
And, that's great. And it's no longer, we're trying to bring a voice to that closed loop, so to speak. And I think it's actually working pretty well.
Yeah, so that's on the list. We got a lot of things to talk about today, and that's because I read so much stuff that when I read it and I reread it a couple of times, maybe I think to myself, enough people have heard this or enough people have seen this, but I think some of those topics even still can use a fresh perspective, right? Can use someone's fresh idea
Sure.
on it. But even the ones that are a little bit more obscure. So we've got Tesla obviously on the brain today. We've got the Honda Nissan merger. We've got an interesting Reddit rabbit hole. I'm going to keep that thing going and make it. I'm going to make that a segment. I'm going to make it a thing.
You're going to make it work.
I'm just going to make it work because I find it interesting. We've got some cars not making it to 2025. I really want to get your take on some of these. We got obviously the new Corvette. We've got the GTD record. So I kind of want to start with the Nissan and Honda merger just because we had talked about that briefly in one of the earlier episodes. And then even before that, before we even started the podcast, we knew that Nissan was in trouble. We knew that things were happening in those markets. So I was actually reading that a former Nissan big boss was saying that it's a desperate move and a bunch of crazy things happening. So I want to get your perspective because you actually have a lot of insight into those kind of industry conversations.
Yeah, no, I have some inside people at Honda. I have some inside people at Nissan that I know pretty well. And I'll tell you, I think it's very up in the air right now. But, let's take a broader look. And I'm sure there are some people that have said this, but you have an existential threat to companies like Honda, Ford, Nissan, and the Chinese automakers. Okay, so you have, BYD, I think, is going to eclipse 4 million units sold this year, which is more than Ford, which is more than, Nissan, which is more than Honda, I believe. So I think, to say it's a desperate move, yes and no. I mean, you have to make a desperate move if you're about to run out of cash. I mean,
Right.
some type of move has to happen. So again, for an executive or a former executive to come out and say that, it's like, yeah, man, when you're going to run out of money, there's really nothing but desperation at that point. And to get into business with Honda, I think you could choose a lot worse business partners to go into business with. Fairly, I think they're $44 billion company. They're not just some, DeLorean reinvigorated or Fisker reinvigorated.
AMC,
I mean,
whatever it was.
yeah. So, you're at this point now where, look, these car companies are starting to wrestle with, they're not going to be able to dominate in China. China automakers are going to dominate in China, which most people think is the biggest, emerging market for cars. And they're trying to find a way to buoy their companies. And Nissan, at this point in time, really doesn't have a company that's on sound footing for the next 10 years. So what choice do they have but to make a move like this and get, I mean, for lack of a better word, get saved? Mm-hmm. But I think for both of these companies, you could really solve a lot if it's done properly. Now, that's the real question moving forward.
So to take a little bit of a wild turn on the conversation of Nissan, what is your perspective of the brand as a whole, right? Because I know, other than the GTR, I don't think there's another, Nissan-specific branded car that I'm like, I kind of like that. Obviously, we had the 350Z and those kind of cars back then, but in the last, 10, 15 years, I can't point to something other than GTR and say I like that. Whereas the Infiniti, at least, I do like, like the Q50 and some of the Infiniti stuff. I do look at, I point at, I say I like that. Would even consider buying that or whatever, but
Yeah,
never
100%.
actually pull the trigger on it. But what are your thoughts on the Nissan brand itself?
Well, Nissan standing alone, I think, look, they kind of butchered Pathfinder. I think
Mm,
that's kind of when the problem started for you go back into the late 90s, early 2000s, mid 2000s, the Pathfinder was a car to have.
yeah.
You got to remember they had the Ultima, which, you go back to the square body Ultima, that was a car people wanted.
Yeah.
It was almost like mid-size luxury.
Yeah.
Those original, those kind of like square body Ultimas were something that when I got in them, I was like, hey, I like this, right? Then they had to redesign Ultima, which sold a zillion, uh, you know, uh, units. But I think you look at this and you have to have a real honest perspective, which is, Murano and Rogue are basically, only being probably propped up by rental fleets at
Hmm.
this point. They're a rental car company, and that's never good. You want the consumer to really buy in. So I think Nissan's actually easily fixable because you redesign and do good things with the Murano, you do good things with Pathfinder, you do good things with Rogue. You limit it to that. You have 2 or 3 trim models. You really just got to simplify. And don't forget the Nissan Sentra still is a kind of car that if you get it priced right, you're going to sell 1 million units of it. Now, can you do that profitably? That's the conversation, right? Because as cars get more expensive to produce and all that kind of stuff, but I think Nissan's fixable, and I get it, man. GTR and the 350Z is not what it used to be, and all that kind of stuff. But they could really do a lot of this very affordable, well built, middle of the road type of stuff, and they could dominate that market because I thought they always had the potential to do that.
The Sentra's a good call. I actually always liked the look of the Sentra. There was a certain late 90s, I think early 2000s, where you put some nice wheels on it. It was just a nice looking car. The shape of it, the silhouette was
Oh,
just
perfect!
cool.
Like 16-year-old's car, nice
Yes.
starter car. You think of people like grandparents,
Hmm.
that are just like, hey, we're downsizing, we're moving out of our house, we're going to get a condo, we just need something to get to the store. I mean, it has a lot of fits, and this is kind of one of the things that you and I say quite a bit, which is, you know, all of this abandonment of the simple vehicle.
Hmm.
There's got to be a company that just goes, we're going to grab the bull by the horns and we're going to build a lot of these simple vehicles that people can buy for a very reasonable price, still have a good experience, and Nissan could fit that. Now, when it comes to the Infinity brand, I mean, you go back to QX56, you go back to QX, you look at the new QX80, which I looked at SEMA, sat in. They have a problem though. I mean, that QX80 is $120,000.
And before we get to
110,000 bucks,
Infinity,
$105,000. I mean, that's
here's a
crazy.
pull for you. I want to get to Infinity, but the Xterra, I just remembered. I liked the Nissan Xterra.
Oh yeah, there's another good one. Yeah, that again, this is kind of like go to the Toyota and the FJ, right?
Hmm.
When
Love
you
the
when you
FJ.
kind of when you kind of look at this, these guys were early to the Overlander world, and then they just didn't kind of stick with it.
Yeah.
And then the Overlander world got huge, and they were out of it. And
Yeah.
instead of like reigniting some of those things, so yeah, Xterra is a great example of, hey, whether you liked it or not, it was a vehicle people liked, and you saw them everywhere. And I think that's kind of what Nissan has lost when they sort of like dumbed down their offerings, but
Mhm.
still people didn't know what to buy. You're kind of seeing this right now with what's the Honda, the
The Stinger?
CRV,
Oh,
what's the SUV that they're revamping,
is it the
slipping my
HR?
mind.
HRV?
No,
Not the CRV.
yeah, CRV or something like that they've gone into redesign on, and it looks like it's going to come out, pretty good. So when you look at this, the Honda Pilot, that I think they went into redesign as well. But let's get to the partnership part of this that I think could
Mhm.
be interesting. Honda has struggled with Acura. Basically, they only sell RDXs. The MDX doesn't sell. The rest of the lineup doesn't sell. If you took some of that design from the Infinity and brought some of those design people into Honda, I think it could really help the Acura brand. And that's what I mean. If they do the right things here, I really think, first of all, Honda brings automatic durability and reliability to Nissan, which I think people have a question about at times, right? On the other side, if you take the Infinity people, the design people, and bring them into Honda's orbit, I think it could help Honda a lot. So I think there is some very positives that could come with it. Now, if it goes down that way, great. Odds are it's probably not going to be that smooth. So I guess we'll just have to see what happens here.
So what you said you saw at SEMA, what was it? The Infinity what? The
QX80, yeah.
what, did you like it?
Oh hell yeah! I mean, it's a luxury big SUV. I mean, it was the one they had there was obviously the top tier, had everything. I mean, they had TVs like in the third row, and you could have a tailgate package where you put a flat screen back there. I mean, obviously they did the whole show, but you sit in it and you go, yeah, man, you guys need to figure out how to sell this for 80, not how to sell this for 125.
Oh, I hadn't even seen that. Yeah, that is pretty sweet.
It's great redesign. And by the way, it was ready for a redesign. They kind of pulled the trigger, maybe let's call it a year or two late, but they did a great job with it. And this is where we get into that pricing talk constantly. It's like, this is what Jaguar struggled with. This is what Infinity's struggling with. You don't think of Infinity as a $120,000 vehicle. And therefore, they struggle to sell them at $120,000, right? And that's going to be the theme in the car business. Bentley sells a flying spur for 350,000 all day long. They don't have to move that many units, but when you get in it, you go, Bentley's a $300,000 car. That goes all the way from $1 million cars all the way down to $20,000 cars. You have to believe that you're getting exactly what that company is good at. And you look at Infinity and you go, we're a long way from G35 and all the stuff that they built. They just kind of lost their way. They got kind of confused on what they were trying to do. They struggle with redesign.
Yeah.
They leave stuff on the table for far too long without a refresh. That is Infinity and Nissan's problem to a T.
Going back to what I said earlier about taking a little wild turn on this, I have this term for Nissan purchasers or buyers because anytime I see a certain Nissan on the road, they do what I call Nissan activities. And they're not the best drivers. The cars are usually not in good condition, and they're driving pretty recklessly. And you want to
Yeah,
say...
that's the Ultima thing.
Dude.
100%.
Why is that the customer? You know what I mean? Like, it's just some stereotypes they're just accurate for a reason.
Yeah.
And those cars, dude, they are a danger and a hazard to most people if you're around them on the road. Sorry to say.
Well,
But those
and
people love 'em.
especially you get down into central Houston, where you got 50 different freeways hitting, and you got, what do you guys call them? Business roads, and people are
Yeah.
swerving all over the place, and you go,
Dude.
there's a lot going on here, and yeah, you'll catch yourself with about 5 or 6 Ultimas wreaking havoc during rush hour down there.
5 or 6, you better just exit and just like get back on later. Like, give them some space, dude. But that person that buys that car too, I know some of those people, and then I just think to myself, that makes sense. That fits perfectly.
Yeah, and I'll say this: Ultima really was kind of headed to a luxury place with those square bodies.
Yeah.
Then when they went through the redesign, they kind of got away from that, and it was more like the every person's car.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, you can, but that's not where they started. Ultima, you would see them, when the square body was out, but, a certain type of person, usually a guy on his way up, he's like, hey, this is fully loaded, and you got in, you're like, this is a nice experience. And then I just think they're floundering, and I think this way of Honda at times. You got to find what you really believe in. And I get it. Everybody will say, well, Honda believes in reliability. Okay, I got that part of it. Nissan stands for, affordable rental vehicles. Okay, fine. The problem is that your design, your pricing, everything has to match what you're doing. You have to have this cohesion to your brand.
Mm-hmm.
I think Nissan, and I think at times if you look at the Acura brand under Honda, it's not very cohesive at the moment. So I think it could work if they actually are there to say, let's take the best of both companies and integrate it into both companies moving forward. I think it could be a great thing.
What do you think took the place of that when the Altima was looking to be like the luxurious kind of I'm coming up kind of car? What took its place? The Camry or what?
No, I think you're still kind of, and I'm sure somebody listening to this is probably screaming into their, into the speakers right now going, hey, it's this car. I think that's where you've gotten into entry-level Benz, entry-level, X1, BMW. You've gotten into the entry-level, Q series with Audi. What's happened is those Euro brands never had an X1 in their lineup, right? BMW smartly said, hey, we need to sell cheaper, entry level stuff to our brand. I think that's what took the place of it. So you see like entry level 3 Series or C300 or those types of vehicles, I think took the place of that old square body Ultima, which was the I'm coming up, kind of bridge the gap till you bought the nice BMW you wanted, right? Or the nice Benz or the nice Audi. Now I think those Euro brands have done a great job just getting you into their entry level stuff.
Yeah, I think you're right. When you said somebody's yelling at their car right now, I don't know why I just wanted to turn into The Rock and say, no, the millions and millions of Clutch Culture fans around the world. Hey, man, we're climbing the charts. I got to say, like, we're climbing the charts. It depends which one you look at. It's like looking at Billboard or looking at Top 100 or whatever. Like, depending on who you look at, we're getting up there to the top 50 of this genre of podcast. So, again, pat on our backs.
Yeah, I hear you. I was kind of shocked that we had done that, but I think again, a voice to the voiceless. That's
There you
what
go.
we're doing out here.
Hell yeah. Speaking of a voice of the voiceless,
Doing God's work out here.
I'm gonna make that shirt a voice for the voiceless, just Clutch Culture podcast with our faces on it, just kind of like two buddies. They're buddies. By the way, speaking of, follow us everywhere at Clutch Culture Pod, TikTok. I mean, wait, real quick. We went from 40,000 upwards of views to 4. So I don't know what's going on that platform. I don't know if we upset the big tech.
The new America. Worried about the ban.
Instagram, Facebook, if you still use it. We also have about, I don't know, almost 50 or so followers on there or likes. You have to kind of use the meta platforms as a whole. So I said, why not? Let's just make a page. People are liking it. People are interacting and watching the videos on Facebook. So if you still use that, if you are 65 and over and you're using Facebook, thank you.
Rob just pissing people off on.
And then YouTube, of course, if you want to watch the full videos, that's fantastic. We had a couple of cool reviews on Apple. If you've listened to the show and you like it, go leave a rating and a review because that really does help climb those charts. And also, it really feeds the ego inside.
Yeah. Big ego play. We're really trying to get you to pump us up.
Hell yeah. All right. So talking about some of these cars, are you familiar with a certain amount of cars that just aren't going to make it to 2025?
Oh, I think that this has become something, like a sport for a lot of us where you kind of go, okay, what's been canceled? And somebody does that article and it's like, hey, here's the 200 things you didn't know are being canceled.
Dude, there were so many of them that I just had to get like a dozen of them and then just see if you know any of them. And well, of course you're going to know them, but if you knew any off the top of your head, obviously I think we all know the Camaro wasn't coming back, right? Stuff like that. But is there anything else that you knew wasn't going to be coming back or that you might be
Well, I think they announced this year Supra was done.
Right.
I think that was kind of like big news. I don't really have.
I really started to like them this year.
Oh, I think they should have. They should have stuck with all of this. I mean, I think
really
this has been. I think here's where everybody needs to kind of step back and go. They didn't launch it properly. They didn't think it through properly, which happens. They didn't invest in it properly. And just as they could have probably gotten some traction and done some things, they go, well, we don't really want to do this anymore. And that happens all the time in the car business, unfortunately.
Well, so I got a list here going for you. So I had an article, it was written by USA Today. There was a couple of other ones written on this similar topic. And those websites just have so many ongoing videos and ads and things playing while you're trying to read the article, and it just gets interrupted. It's so bad. And for me, it throws off. I have several monitors here, and it throws it off when USA Today or whoever's trying to play a video, and you're scrolling, and the video's still playing, and I can't exit the video for some reason. So I had good old ChatGPT summarize the article for me. And a lot of these people, the reasons that they said they're getting rid of some of these cars was to retool for their electric era.
Yes,
okay?
No question.
I was a little surprised by some of these people, Audi included. I don't know why I thought that they wouldn't be taking such a leap, by canceling some of their models, changing also some of the names. I think they're going to make even numbers. Their ICE cars and their odd numbers are all electric.
Yeah, that should go well.
Yeah. So starting at the top, the Toyota Venza. Okay, I actually thought this was a nice car.
100%. Yeah, I have a neighbor that's had a Venza for years. I mean, 2, 3 years, 4 years maybe.
Yeah.
Think it looks good. Think it fits a lot of people. But again, you have to invest in building the fanfare of these products. And when you have 27 models of a Sequoia, you don't have time for a Venza.
So they're making room for the 2025 Toyota Crown Signia.
Yes, yes.
That's why they said they're getting rid of it. Why would you do that?
Look, smart company. They're run really well. So it's always hard to make a joke at a company that's like, one of the biggest dogs, if not the biggest dog on the block. But
Right.
look, I mean, Supra, Venza, but I think what is interesting about this is you really don't know the effects until 5 years after this stuff,
Yeah.
right? But I looked at the Venza, but there was a Honda that was built back in the day called a Cross Tour that I thought everybody should buy. It was kind of like a very low SUV, had a big rounded back with a lot of space. I got made fun of endlessly at a car show once here in Vegas that was with manufacturers because the first time that I saw that, I'm like, I drive one of those. Dude, everybody was with me was like, because it's kind of like a
Isn't that
hybrid
with us?
between, it was like between a hybrid between a wagon and an SUV kind of. So
Yeah.
it had that big open back that when you lift the tailgate, it's like half the car. And I'm like, yeah, this is kind of wagony. And and I'm going to get my balls busted in the comments. I'm sure they're going to be like, what are you talking about?
The Honda. Oh, that one. Oh, what are you talking about? That
Exactly.
Cross
Hey,
Tour.
I'll rock that right now.
I usually don't disagree with you much on some of these obscure cars, but that one, because it reminded me so much of like an Accord that was trying to do too much.
Yeah, and by the way, when you look at that, remember the time frame of what Honda's design was. That I know it looks goofy now, but that's how the cars were designed then when that was launched. And I don't know, man. That's why I look at Venza, I look at those types of things, and obviously Toyota knows why they cancel their cars. There's some reason they got some bigger plan. But I'm with you. I thought the Venza was a vehicle people should have purchased. But I think people should be purchasing Siennas by the millions. So I'm not exactly the right guy to ask all the time.
No, I don't disagree with you on that. I think the Sienna's awesome. Like,
Yeah.
it's a cool car to have around.
Well, look, for all those big Fast and Furious fans out there, what's the guy's name that was Sung Kang or whatever his name is, the
Luke
car
Yang?
guy.
No, yeah.
So anyway, he's coming out and he's like, hey, the coolest thing you can drive is a van. Look at this van I tricked up. I'm like, I hear you. I try to tell everybody in my family, I get laughed out of the room.
That I can agree with you on. I do have for some reason, have this weird, and again, it goes back to the wagon, the hatch, the just versatility in the space you can have with something like that, and still make it look cool and performance wise if you really wanted to.
Hey, I think I sent you. Did I send you that conversion van that was on Bring a Trailer?
No.
That huge conversion van, like a 2015 huge. They got the big captain's chairs and they got a big TV. And I'm like, I might bid on this thing.
Dude, I mean, I don't know why, but Sprinter, not Sprinter. Well, I guess they are. They're the Ford Sprinter vans, right? Those Ford vans.
Yeah.
I think they're cool. I've seen some done up really well, from 13, 14, 15, those kind of years. And then the Flex. I was a huge fan of the Ford Flex. To
Yep.
this day, if you never drove one, I mean, it was one of the funnest cars to drive. That
So
just
we had a crazy. So the Mercedes van that's kind of like the Ford van.
Mm-hmm.
So we did something for a guy that very well, one of my famous clients. He was doing a branding thing on for a company that he purchased. We took one of those vans, they gutted the back, they put all Maybach seats
Nice.
and all this stuff in there, big TV, and it's like, but I go all the way back. I think the most underappreciated thing out there is a van, especially I say Chrysler Pacifica. Great rental car. I'm in. I
Dude.
told you. I got one when I was in Phoenix. I was like, I like this thing. I don't care what anybody
My
says.
sister-in-law has one, and the first time I got in it, my brother was driving it, and I was like, "This is pretty sweet." And he was like, "You think so?" He goes, "Yeah." He goes, "I hate this thing." I go, "No, dude, this thing's awesome." I started talking about why or whatever. He goes, "Are you a car guy?" I said, "Yeah." He goes, "You like this, man?"
But here's what I'm saying. You got to feel real confident to just come out and admit vans are cool, dude.
Hell yeah.
Now you go back to the old van, the Astro van, I get it. I'm with you. Those weren't cool. You get into a Sienna Platinum, you go, this thing's pretty sweet. This thing's pretty sweet, and you can do a ton of shit to them.
Dude,
So,
people are gonna love the show and then be like, "It was all great until they got into 15 minutes of talking about vans." I still like the guys, but I was just a little thrown
Yeah.
off by the van talk.
That's all right. I got us off topic with the cross tour, which I'm sure
No,
people are going
jam
to
in the
light me
van.
up.
We're jamming in the van is what we're doing. Okay, all right. Look, so we start with the Venza. Again, we'll see how that all happens. I don't know about this Crown Signia, but the Edge, I never liked the Edge. I tried liking it. I even tried liking the Edge ST when it first dropped. Houston Auto Show, I saw it. I checked it out. Thought it was cool, and I wanted to like it. But when you have the Explorer, there's just no reason to get an Edge.
Yeah, I think I'm in the same boat. I drove an Edge a couple times as rental cars for actually weeks on a time. It just didn't make sense,
Not at
right?
all. Too
Like
small, too cramped, underpowered.
yeah, it just didn't make sense. And I think the fact that it's lasted this long is pretty shocking.
Yeah, well, in their segment of the Ford, the Edge story, they're going to focus on the F Series Super Duty trucks, which they can't even make enough of, which is makes a lot of sense, right? That
Yeah.
actually makes sense.
Yeah,
If you want
no, I
to
mean,
retool
look,
for that,
they're retooling to the F-250. I think as fast as they can up in
yep,
Canada. I think
yep,
they're
correct.
busting a move as fast as they can.
Chevy retiring the Camaro. What do we still care about the Camaro? Should it make a comeback and stay? Like, should they have
I'm one
never
of these
canceled it?
guys people are gonna hate. I've never liked a Camaro.
Wow,
I've
you didn't like
never
the
liked a Camaro.
O2,
No,
SS?
I was not a Camaro. I was never. I could respect the special editions like the ZL ones and the things like that of the modern one, and I can respect the people like that. People like it.
Yeah,
It just didn't hit with me.
yeah.
I mean, again, one of my biggest pet peeves that I probably haven't made clear enough on this show is go back into the muscle car era in a Camaro or a Barracuda and they have stripes on it. I'm out. Can't stand. I mean, it's like, dude, don't put stripes on your car. That's
That
just
clip's
it's just.
dropping soon where you said that about Barrett Jackson, and I genuinely did not like the way you said that.
Wait till I go to Barrett Jackson and just film stripe, 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 stripe. You know what I mean? It's like the thing that really got me is that as I got more into the world of car restoration and things like that in my career, I go, you've repainted it. Why not be unique and go all one color? Because you go back and you look at like Joe Rogan commissioned that Barracuda to get done.
Hmm.
I think it was called Silverfish.
Correct.
Go look at that car, one color, and go, why wouldn't everybody do this?
Yeah, I tend to agree. I think some stripes. I think because I grew up in the Cruising USA world, where like the main car was a Viper with stripes.
Sure.
That it's that kind of stuck in my head. But I don't think I'd ever personally put stripes on a car. I just don't think I would.
Well, especially if you're already paying to have it repainted.
Right.
It's like, hey, we're doing the restoration. And I talk to customers about this all the time. I'm like, hey, we're restoring this. You might as well, kind of do something unique. And they're like, no. I'm like, okay, man. All right, it's your car.
It's your money. It's your money.
Yeah.
And honestly, to go back, as much as I liked the look of, and when I heard and saw like the old F bodies, like a 2000 or 2002, like WS6 or a Camaro, I thought they looked cool. And then I'd get in it and drive, a buddies or something. I'm like, I hate this. Like, I hate the driving dynamics of it altogether. But I still want one. So that's how much of a psycho I am. Like, I would still take an O2 SS. I don't think I'd drive it much, but I'd be like, that's pretty cool.
Yeah, no, I think this is just a matter of. I think Camaro is one of those cars. Like if you were introduced to it very early in your car experience, you love it,
Yeah.
right? Like let's just say dad had one, brother had one,
Hmm.
somebody had one, your good friend had one, and
Yep.
that was your real experience.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just kind of one of those things. I think you're just into it or you're not, and why they're killing it off, I'm going to be interested to see that real reasoning play out long term.
Speaking of growing up with dad, uncle, good friend, is there one of those cars that you're like, it could probably be something you'll never buy, but you're like, I really, really like those cars because I grew up with it?
Oh, Jeep Wrangler. Jeep
Really?
Wrangler was dude. I've had probably 3 or 4 Jeep Wranglers. I'd have to really think it through. But when I lived in San Diego, I lived right on the water. Okay.
Mm.
I had a Jeep Wrangler that never had the top or the doors on it.
You were that
Never.
guy. He was
Not
Ken in his head. He was Barney Ken driving the PCH.
But I come back. I go. I have a real nostalgia for like square headlight Jeeps.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah.
Because that was kind of a cool, unique thing. If you could find one and kind of fix it up for my high school time, because they were super cheap, nobody wanted them. You got to
Hmm.
realize those Jeeps had no carpet in them. For the most part, you couldn't hear the speakers because they didn't have any sound bars at the time. So you had to build your own sound system in there and make your own sound bar basically, and behind, hang speakers and that kind of thing. So it was this cheap and I mean, I didn't have a lot of money,
Yeah.
so it was just cheap and affordable, and they were crap. I mean,
Yeah.
they were horrible to drive around. But I'm nostalgic. That's why I hate the 4-door Jeep so much in the modern time, is because
Okay.
it's like, dude, I was there in the wintertime in Ohio where I grew up when these things were all metal. The top is rattling.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like and it makes no sense, by the way. Like
No, it doesn't. And
my
honestly,
opinion on it doesn't make any sense.
no, but I understand because my dad and my uncle also grew up with Jeeps. So I grew up like I don't I used to remember all the different monikers or whatever. But like he still has an old YJ, I think like a '92. Grew up with some CJs and some of the older stuff, and I
Oh,
thought they
dude,
were cool.
you get into those CJs, man. I mean, it's
He still
you
loves them.
you got the eagle on the hood.
Of course, hell
Yeah,
yeah,
tank
America,
top on.
America, yeah.
You
For
got the
me,
Gold's Gym tank top just rolling.
come on, do it. For me, it's got to be, and this is an obscure one, but I had a buddy who was big into classic cars. He was a little bit older. He played in a band with an older cousin of mine, so I was just kind of around them. But he had a bunch of old muscle cars, and he had an old, I mean, from old Apache, trucks to the main one we used to drive around. And it was, I think, a '70 or '71 Super Bee. And to this day, I just love that particular car.
Yeah, no, and that's where a lot of guys get offended when you don't like the cars they like.
Yeah,
You've been to car shows, right?
no,
And
for sure.
when you're not excited about their or whatever it is, and you just go, "Hey, man, it's not how I was introduced to all this." And just so everybody knows, I worked for a car wholesaler. My first real experience, I didn't have my driver's license yet. I was a couple months away getting my driver's license when I got this job. And so I saw everything. I was seeing, convertible Jags. I was seeing Preludes. I was seeing, beat up Honda Civics. I was seeing Ferraris. I was seeing everything. Camaro, didn't matter, whatever, Firebirds and all that kind of stuff. So whatever resonated, like whatever seemed like the coolest when you got in,
Yeah,
that's just what stuck with you. You didn't know what the hell. I mean, you just were like, oh, I love this.
yeah.
I mean, if you ever get into a Ferrari Testarossa, and I was like, oh my God, this is awesome. You get one, they're not awesome, but they were awesome to a 16, 17-year-old kid, right? Like that was, now I know people, in the Ferrari world can be like, oh, I love the Testarossa. I got you, man. But let's just be
Sure
honest
you
about it.
do.
It's not the great, not the greatest experience.
Funny about that, like, having gone to car shows and people getting offended when you don't like their car. I remember when the C8's first dropped, and
Oh,
I think,
price
dude,
is coming down on the
oh boy,
C8.
that's why I brought it up. So I remember being at this big car show. It was similar to Cars and Coffee, but wasn't one. And this guy was in the corner all by himself. Like he specifically was as far away from other cars as possible. And everybody obviously was going to it. It's a very nice silver car with stripes, and had
Yep,
some
of
nice
course it
like
was.
aftermarket exhaust on it already. And he had just got it. He still had the paper plates and everything on it. And he was so proud of it, which I get it. It's cool. I thought they were cool cars. I still don't like them more than like even the C7 or honestly or C6
Really?
personally. No.
Well, I
No.
mean, look, when you copy the Ferrari platform basically, word for word, I mean, the only thing they got to fix about the C8 is the back end's up too high.
Exactly. That is my
That's it.
biggest.
If they fix that, I mean, what you can fix on your own, you can fool with the suspension and get it right. That's
Yeah.
the only thing they need to fix. I think it's a unique car. It's the move they had to make because C7, Z06 with a stick, guys were going to wreck them into trees. I mean, they were at the limit, right?
Yeah.
So, I mean, I am a fan of C8. By the way, coming down in a big way,
Dude,
and
40,
this
50
is what,
grand.
yeah, what every Corvette person, and I have a lot of them that I talk to as customers, and I love you all because I know you're listening to this. They're not special. They make millions of them. They're going to continue to make millions of them. You don't have a special one. You never had a special one. There's like two special ones in the history of Corvette. But here's the deal, man. You can drive the hell out of these C8s, enjoy them, which people are doing. During the pandemic, they were special because stock was low and not everybody was getting them. We've caught up. Now
Sounds
everybody's
like you
got
just
them. The
had one
price.
drive by.
What's that? Yeah,
Sounds like
100%. What I'm saying is that we're gonna get back to a normal Corvette market now.
Yeah.
There's no doubt about it.
And that's good, right? I mean, that's good for the consumer, not necessarily for some of these, Doug DeMiro types and bringer trailers that hope that they hold their value higher. But back to that guy, he really took offense when somebody said something to the effect of like, "Why didn't you get XYZ?" Right? And the guy was like, "The C8." He goes on the whole rant, like he rode the
Oh
read the
yeah.
brochure kind of thing. So that just sticks in my mind when I see current prices of what's happening to that market. And
Yeah, it's a great car to drive around, man.
yeah,
I
I haven't
drive him
driven one.
around. I drive him around pretty frequently. I like the car. I mean, I tell you what though, man, they get to like 30 grand.
I
You
was gonna
know,
say,
with
what's the buy price? Like right now, is 50 still a bit much? Or I mean,
no, I mean,
for what you
look,
get?
if you want an absolutely blast of a sports car that works, that is a good car, you buy a C8. I mean,
Okay.
it's just go enjoy it, man. Just don't be the guy that tells yourself you're driving a Ferrari. You're not, right? You and I had this conversation the other day. It's like, we have these things in the car when they're like, oh, my car would blow out that car. It's like, yeah, that car's way cooler than your car. Like,
Hey man,
but
if I
C8s are awesome. Like, to me, a no brainer. I've owned a Corvette personally before, and I'll tell you, it's always fun to drive. Doesn't matter which one you get, from C3, C4, C5, C7. Now you're into the C8. Look, they've always been fun to drive. They've always been good bang for the buck, and they're going to now be bang for the buck again. And Corvettes are a great car.
So you mean tell me if I roll up in a cammed out like C7 Z06, the chick's gonna like the Ferrari like SF90 more than my cammed out
I
C7?
mean, I'll gap an SF90. It's like, okay, dude. I mean, all right.
Well, it's been a good run to the show, everybody. I appreciate you listening to the first half dozen episodes. While Nicholas here has really offended, if I offended
Uh,
somebody earlier, you offended half of the world by your statements here.
I'm guessing 100%.
All right, speaking of Ferrari, that was on the list, but my ChatGPT list here kind of cut it off for some reason. But it was the SF90, and there was another one that Ferrari also wasn't bringing back after this.
SF90 tanked.
Yeah.
So SF90's worth what, half? You're probably picking those up for 3 or 4 now, going for 9 something, 8 something at when you bought them. And I've already shared my SF90 story. Go listen to the previous pod. I mean, we had one. It was like guy had it a week. It was like, I need to get rid of this, and right idea, right chance to take, wrong execution, and in true Ferrari fashion, when it doesn't work, they're just not going to do it anymore.
So I'm gonna rattle off a couple of them so we can move on to other topics. But we have the GTR, Godzilla. We obviously knew that. Titan, Nissan Titan, Infiniti Q50, the TRX, the Maserati. Is it Ghibli? Is that how you pronounce it?
Ghibli.
Ghibli, and then the Subaru Legacy. Any of those surprise you, or any of those be like, yeah, that's expected?
Subaru Legacy's surprising
Yeah.
because again, that's a car that's kind of been a staple. Obviously, they're seeing what everybody else is seeing, is that it's hard to sell a 4-door sedan.
It's the longest running car.
I mean, Subaru Legacy. I had one of my buddies growing up. That was his first car.
35 years.
Yeah, I mean, and for people that don't know, I don't think people realize how long things like Chevy. I think Chevy Suburban's now the longest running car that's been made. I think they got to be approaching 100 years.
Wow.
80, 90 years. Subaru Legacy, yeah, man, 30 plus years. I believe it. Like,
Well,
yeah, but they got to make the move, right? I mean, they sell a shit ton of Outbacks and things like that, and they got to just retool to be able to make the things they know people are buying.
well, they're retooling for their electric fleet.
Yeah, that's going to be interesting for Subaru because that's Rivian is leaning heavy into using their SUVs, their electric SUVs off road. The R2 I think got some press this week that they're going to be releasing in the next 18 months. I'm always interested to see that.
Yeah.
The Outback has been such a staple for them. Those types of those types of vehicles. I'm wondering how they'll do in the electric world. And again, it's going to come down to pricing.
Yeah.
Can they really sell something for 32,000 in the electric market that people like? I think they could have success, but if they need to be in that 50 to 60, Subaru's going to struggle.
So talking about Rivian, which by the way, I kind of like the way they look, and then sometimes
Oh
look
yeah,
at them, I'm like,
Rivians are great.
yeah, yeah. I've never driven one.
Great. Oh, dude, they're great.
Yeah.
I mean, they're like $150,000 build quality that they're selling for like 75 grand. So the
Really?
company has no chance to be profitable, but yeah, great bang for the buck.
So what happens to that company after 5 years if they make it
Oh well,
5 years?
this is where all the commenters that are like EV propagandists, evidently, in our comments, that I just go, guys, at
Talk
some
your
point
shit, Nick.
the business has to business,
Yeah.
right? At some point, it's got to make sense, and I think Rivian, design wise, they're top of the list. They got the interiors right. They think through their cars properly. Their vehicles, I should say. I mean, all the way around, I think it's the car company you would go, hey, we're kind of rooting for this one to work out because they design it well, they understand what they're doing, but how much money are you going to burn in chasing building a car company? If you say, hey, we're going to burn trillions of dollars, they're going to be around a long time, but they're burning money like crazy. And they have been for since their inception. And by the reason is because when you get in them, you can feel the build quality, you can see all the features they have, and you go, well, this cost a lot to make. I mean, it's just what it feels like. And so I actually root for Rivian because they're nice, man. I mean, I got a couple neighbors with them. I like them. I like driving them around. If they were if they were about $10,000 or $15,000 less on the used market, I'd pull the trigger.
Wow. That might come sooner than you think, though, right?
They do okay. I mean, but I need them to take that, Ford Lightning dump, and
Yeah.
really like get hacked
Benny's
and
will take a
hacked
dump
and
like
hacked.
that. So speaking of electric, though, there's an article by Electric, REK. Tesla is having major issues with self-driving computer inside of the car. So apparently these cars are, as you would phrase it, bricking themselves and giving huge problems. And a lot of it comes from a new chip.
No, the commenters say that never happens.
But it's 8 years, 100,000 miles of warranties, Nick. They're
Yeah,
guaranteed.
you
to
don't
fix
get
this
it,
stuff.
Nick. You've only dealt with thousands of electric cars. You don't know.
So brand new Tesla vehicles are experiencing self-driving computer failures, which are resulting in significant problems, an inside source says. I don't know if you're familiar with it, but yeah, I keep hearing about this A4, I think it is, sometimes called A4, yeah, of the onboard self-driving computer. A lot of people in the comments of these articles and videos are saying, well, I've had mine for 12 months, I haven't had an issue. And they're talking about
100%.
in the last couple of months, in the last cars rolling off the last couple of months.
Yeah, so let's kind of talk about something that happens everywhere in life, but it specifically happens in the car world all the time with every brand, not just electric. Because it hasn't happened to you doesn't mean it's not happening. Okay? Everyone kind of needs to just because it's not happening to the one car you own doesn't mean the other 3 million cars aren't experiencing.
No way,
And
really?
so,
That's how it works?
but here's the thing. You've been in the car world, I mean, pretty much your whole adult life, so have I. That goes for every car brand. Like, I'll give you an example. I've had a bunch of people that buy Range Rovers, and their Range Rover is not a problem. They're like, my Range Rover works great. And I'm like, I got 7 at the dealership right now where the sunroof won't open. Well, mine's been great. I mean, that's crazy. They must be doing something to their car. It's like, no, just because it's not happening to you doesn't mean it's not happening. That's what we see in the EV commenters, the world, the viewpoint on EV is that it's rampant that people go, my one car is not having that issue, therefore it's not having that issue across the whole lineup. That's just not the case. I think the self-driving stuff is I wish nobody would have gone down this road in a lot of ways, because did you see the video of the Waymo car in Los Angeles that was like running into stuff? So have you heard about Waymo?
I have, but I didn't know deep dive on it.
Okay, so Waymo's like this driverless Uber, basically.
Right,
Okay,
yeah.
and it's big in Los Angeles, and I think places like DC. Don't quote
Yeah.
me.
I saw the video of
But
like the 600-pound chicken there that was getting driven around.
yeah. So anyway,
She was the size of the
I
car.
went to LA. I was on some business, and I got in a Waymo. I was like, I just want to see what this is about. It's a great experience, right? No problem. Except for there's this video going around online where this Waymo just starts malfunctioning in a crosswalk and whatever.
No.
Self-driving runs into ambulances with their lights on.
Eesh.
Okay? Like, let's be clear. We're a very long distance away from cars driving themselves, basically because who's going to insure it?
Right.
So if I engage self-driving, is Tesla or Rivian responsible if it gets in a wreck? Am I responsible? Does State Farm or Allstate insure me, or does Tesla need to carry it? There's a lot of legalities to this. And one of the things I wish would have never happened is I wish they'd have never gone down this road, because I think it's also muddied the waters on the EV conversation. Because you have all these people that are like, well, see, I'm on this straight freeway and it drives itself. It's like, yeah, I mean, didn't cars kind of do that when they were aligned properly anyway? I could take my hands off the steering wheel on a straight freeway driving through Texas. Okay. Now, I'm making a joke, obviously, but you know what I'm saying? It's like they don't show like the self-driving having to weave in and out of, kids' balls going through your neighborhood and they show it like in this straight line. They're like, see, the self-driving works fantastically. It's like, no, they still run into police cars.
What a
Like,
bold move when they do these tests, man. Because I've seen people, like actual people that walk in front of some of these cars and they hit the people walking when they're
oh,
doing the test.
100%. Dude, that's what was going on with this Waymo thing. This thing was in the crosswalk and it's going back and forth and then it's like turning in a circle and I'm like, what is happening here? But again, I like that people are innovating, right? Like you and I cheer that on. But
Well,
I think a lot of this self-driving stuff has just, and now it seems like it's biting Tesla a little bit in the ass even more. It's like, guys, just drive your car. It's not that serious.
yeah, if you had to choose, like keep trying to innovate on self-driving or just drive your cars, what would you choose?
Yeah, well, how about just learn how to have good panel gaps on your doors before you're worried about self-driving?
They
How about you just
got-
build a higher quality vehicle?
They have come very far, Nick. All right, don't ever talk about.
Oh,
the
let me tell you
interior.
this, dude. I remember the Teslas we got where we would have video of them like basically being painted outside in California, and we get it, and like the paint would be peeling off. Oh yeah, it was. But again, for everybody that has one now, they're like, that didn't happen. I was there. They definitely were painting cars like in a plastic booth that, the wind was blowing and the paint would peel off. Like, I've been in this world a long time. They have come a long way. Okay, Tesla builds a decent car. Let's don't relax. Let's relax a little bit. But yeah, man, I mean, I think again, had they just put this into building a better car instead of all the time to self-driving, imagine the quality of Tesla on different things that they still have issues with. Maybe the Cybertruck wouldn't have been chopping people's fingers off.
That's again bold move to be doing that.
Hey, Cybertruck, I've had like 8,000 of them since SEMA in my shop. Like,
Really?
dude, because people's
Actually, I do
work
see a
was
lot of them
bad.
in Austin.
Yeah, and look, I'm a fan of it. I'm not going to be one of those guys that tell you I wouldn't buy one, but I get
What is
why
a
people buy them.
What does a fan of it mean, though? If you say I wouldn't buy one, but I'm a fan of it, I would just want to hear your.
I don't root against it. There's a lot of people
Sure,
that
we don't
root
want it to
against.
fail.
Yeah, I don't want it to fail. I see the flaws in it, but I go, we're always asking car companies to do funky stuff, and then when they do, you have Cybertruck come out, people are like, I don't like that. It's like, well, most enthusiasts have been like, hey, we'd like to see car companies not just make black and white vehicles and do interesting stuff. So I think it's kind of counterproductive to go, this was interesting, right? I mean, by all accounts, it's interesting. I don't want to buy one, but I'm going to root for the interesting. At least something interesting came out of it.
Yeah, I was picking up my kids from school yesterday, and Christmas break's starting, and we're at a light, and I just hear my daughter in the back. Ew! I said, "What?" She goes,
Yeah.
"Look at that truck over there." I was like, "It was a Cybertruck." I was like, "You don't
Oh,
like it?"
yeah.
She goes, "No, it's gross."
I'm telling you, if you got a Cybertruck, just listen to me. Get white PPF on it and call it a day. That's the best that they look.
Okay, everybody, reach out to Nick to get your white PPF on your Cybertruck. Yeah, sure. All right, we got about 15 minutes here. I want to cover a couple of other topics. One of them being, here's our interesting Reddit rabbit hole for the day. So Doug DeMiro, I want to get to his smoking tire appearance too, because I did listen to that and some interesting things I wanted to bring up and get your opinion on. But the Reddit rabbit hole is I just happened to stumble upon a user talking about Doug. I don't know if it was on smoking tire because I don't recall this part, but on a recent show, he talked about a guy that was buying all of the Broncos on Cars and Bits. Are you familiar with this topic?
Yeah. There was some. I was getting notifications from some people that watch auction sites a lot, saying that a guy was basically like hoarding Ford Broncos at some point in time in Cars and Bids, and I think he even did some stuff on Bring a Trailer if they ever carried them.
Yes, on both. And so he's got the same username. So check this out. So this guy, he was just so intrigued by this story that he found. So he found the user's name. It turns out, let's see, his name is Half Elvin is the user's name. He's won 62 Ford auctions. All right, 37 new Broncos, 15 F-150 Lightnings, and 10 other Fords. His question to the internet was: is he storing them for the future's greatest barn find, or simply sending them overseas? Another funny note was that every bid that he won ended in the 2 digits of the year model of the car that he won.
That's crazy.
So weird.
And I got to tell you something. If you think that's going to be a barn find, let me go ahead and tell you, not going to
I
be a
knew you were
sweet
gonna
barn
say
find
that.
in 30 years,
Bro,
40 years.
A Focus RS with some Lightnings in there 30 years from now? Come on, that's so cool.
We might be to a point where Ford's not around. Maybe that would be interesting.
How dare you?
That's when you'd be like, oh, okay, this is an interesting barn. Yeah, I read about that. You got to think he was pawning them off overseas or putting them in containers to places. I mean, I guess we could all be wrong. If he's listening to this, the user, reach out to us because I'd love to know why the
I'd
hell you
love
were
to know
buying these.
what you're doing. Some of the price and the interesting part was some of the prices for these. I mean, he paid 57 for a 2016 Ford Focus RS,
Ugh.
which I love. Whoa, what do you mean?
I mean, what's that? I mean, you can get those for what, 20 grand now?
Oh, okay, sure, yeah. But this one had apparently 700 miles on it.
Oh yeah, look, I see. People love low mileage of cars that, you go, okay, well, with a little bit of mileage, you could have paid like 15 for that. You know what I
How
mean?
dare you?
So he might be a barn find. He might be looking at himself saying, "Hey, this is what I really love." Ford Lightning reintroduced was really when
I
Ford's
mean,
heyday.
and that was the people's like in the comments of this Reddit rabbit hole. They're like, these prices just don't seem to make sense. And then you start looking at the miles, and I guess if that's what you're into, and that's why you're trying to store them, but like he paid 75 for an 22, F-250 Lariat, 48 for a Mach-E when you can get them for $199 a month. Leasing, nothing due at signing. I mean, 85 for a 22 Lightning.
Look, I'll say this. The craziest rabbit hole you can go down if you're really a car nerd is go see what people pay for stuff on these auction sites. Like really dive into the data.
Hmm.
Boy, your head will explode. You'll be like, somebody paid what for what? I mean
Hmm.
that's kind of like a fun having a drink, don't have a lot going on. Let me go check some data. Let's see the live auctions. Let's see where I mean you can see some stuff like this, right? Like where you just go, he paid what? I mean, that happens a lot for like Evos and things that are low mileage like that. People, I mean, I've seen Honda Civic with low mileage go for massive money. I mean, I think one went for six figures at some point. Like, and you're
Whoa.
going, buddy, I've driven one of those. Like, that's not, but it's what they're into, man. Like, it's what
Well,
they like.
speaking of auctions, on Christmas Day, we're going to drop a video that might be a series of videos. Nick and I haven't decided yet, where you're going to be able to look over Nick's shoulder as he's on the search for a new daily, potentially. So we're
Yeah.
going to drop it on Christmas Day and then have hopefully a series because I doubt you've found what you're looking for yet, right?
No, I definitely haven't. And that auction was interesting because I may have to recalibrate.
Tell
I
me.
may have to look at I would like to find something for 18, 19,000 at the max.
Hmm.
That market looks like it for ones that you'd want is probably going to end between 23 and 28,000. So now I have to make that decision where I go, okay, am I willing to bump and go get what I want? And then now that puts me in a different price as we shared on one of our podcasts. Every 5 grand under, when you're in this world, that starts to matter. I may have to make the call and just go, hey, I want to get one that I want, and that's going to cost me $6,000 than I thought. And that can happen in any part of the market. That can happen in a sports car market. That can happen in a truck market. When you're online looking at these auctions, sometimes you got to recalibrate. I'm still going to hold strong and see if I can't find just a higher mileage one that's been well taken care of and get at my price point. But I can't look forever. I need something.
Yeah, what's the
So
timeline you think when you actually want to pull the trigger on something?
I need something probably before the end of January.
Oh, okay,
Like,
all right.
I
About
mean,
six
I'm getting to
weeks,
the
four,
point
6 weeks.
where my daily now would need me to dump some money in,
Mm.
and so you get to this diminishing returns of, okay, I just put $1,500 into this truck to get all the things, little minor things fixed and all that kind of stuff. So right now, this would maybe a fun to kind of tell people is there's also times you got to recalibrate or you got to bow out and say, hey, this market's gotten to the place I'm not comfortable and I'm just not going to buy one of these. But
Yeah.
I've gone back to Ford Raptor Gen 1, especially as we turn the year, they get a year older, see if that kind of affects the price. So I'm on the hunt, no doubt.
I'm glad you brought that up because ever since we started talking about it, I just randomly was like, all right, let's see what's going on. There's a couple places here in Texas, actually one in Austin, where they specialize in just trucks, right? There's a lot of these like
Oh,
high
yeah.
lifted, they're like called like lifted trucks, right?
Yeah.
.com or whatever. Yeah,
Liftedtrucks.com.
and they don't just sell lifted trucks, and I feel like they started like that, and they're like, we got to broaden our base
Yeah.
here, so they start
Yeah.
carrying other things. But there's some really nice Raptors here. What is in your opinion right now, if you saw like a 60 to 70,000 mile Gen 1 Raptor, like a 13, 14,
Yeah.
what's a decent price for it?
Well, I think you're probably, depending on how well it's cared for, you're going to find yourself in that, $38 to $50,000, depending on how it was cared for, and did the dealership or the person have to dump some money in? So you're probably looking at that price range, and again, I've seen that number run all the way up to 60 grand. I say this, I think Gen 1 Raptor makes a lot of sense at 30, 32 Gen 1 Raptor starts to look real strange when you put that 4 next to it.
Okay, I'm gonna have to send this to you. I think it was 34 or 35. Really sharp looking white one too.
Oh, I meant please tell me they took the stickers off.
Of the you don't like the bedside stuff?
Whoa, whoa, whoa.
What?
Robert, you know me well enough. You got it. I know I'm driving a
Those are high
Raptor, dude.
quality.
You don't have to put vinyl on that says.
Those
That's
are
my
high.
big argument against GT3. I bought this Porsche. I went to the dealership. I got an allocation, and I got Porsche on the wing. So when I look in my rear view mirror, I'm reminded that I'm driving a Porsche. I know I'm driving a Porsche. I just overpaid for it. Why do I need that sticker on there? Yeah, no, I'm anti-sticker. I'm
Looks
anti-badges. I'm
cool.
anti all that.
You're anti badges?
Oh yeah, badges. I thought you knew this. I rip badges off everything.
No.
Yeah, no, I can't. One of my big complaints about my M3 is on the BMW buries the BMW sign into the car.
Yeah.
If I had my way, I could just rip that thing right off. Like I can't stand all that stuff.
I used to add extra badges to my cars.
Hey, this has been a fun time at the Clutch Culture Podcast. We're going to go ahead and end the whole show.
Listen, hear me out. So I had one of my first cars that I purchased. I graduated in high school and I got an '05 SRT4. Still one of my favorite cars. I thought it was very fun. I wish they would have kept making it. And they had the early SRT badges too. I thought looked so cool. Like it's just there's a certain look to. As a matter of fact, I found I had a flag. I had the original SRT flag that I'd have in my garage, and it looked super cool. So anyway, they only had it on the back, and then in later models, I think on the Caliber, they might have put it in the grill. So I got the one that was on the back, and I put it on the grill. And then where you see Volkswagen now put the disgusting large GTI on the underneath the mirrors of the both doors, I did that with the original SRT logo. But it was small enough to where it looked kind of subtle, kind of like the older GTIs are now, but nobody was doing that then. And I thought it was so cool. It was like 18,
Email
19.
Robert at ilovebadgesonmycar.com.
I do love badges.
I can't believe it.
Yeah, I just think it looks cool.
Yeah, no, I'm rip it all off. Like we have a lot of Porsche GT cars in here, and they have they have that lower vinyl package.
Yep.
And I'm always like, hey, you want me to rip that off? And it's like 50-50. Guys are like, no, man, love it. So sometimes I got to replace them, and I'm like, yeah, man, I can't stand those.
What do you think of puddle lights in cars that have like the logo or the name?
Yeah, see, I've gone so back and forth. So I thought it was cool when that was only really being done by like the upper echelon, car companies, because I thought it was unique. Now I go, as soon as that kind of trickles down to every car, it gets played out kind of quick. I mean, I know why they do it. I'm not anti it. I think it can I don't need to open my Nissan Sentra and have a puddle light, but I mean, we're kind of getting there. I thought it was cool. Like we just got a new Range Rover. I kind of like that, they have the stencil of the Range Rover and the puddle light now. Doesn't just say Range Rover or the one that we just picked up. Their puddle light is like an outline of Range Rover. So it's like the actual outline of the vehicle.
Yeah.
And I was like, that's pretty cool.
Oh, dude. So I'm scrambling to find this because I have to show it to you while we're on the podcast because it fits what we were talking about. Jesus, where's it at? It's in Austin inventory. So I did say no free shout outs, but hey, we're going to show it on the podcast anyway. Rocky Mountain Truck Stop. RockyMountainTruckStop.com is where this is listed. And I just want to get your reaction to it. If you think it's as cool looking as I thought it was. And, we want to try to share more stuff on the podcast as we're talking, but it makes the clips harder because if it moves our faces away, then I can't get a solid clip of you ranting on the thing. But let's check this out.
Gotcha.
The ranting of Nick is kind of the best part of the whole show. Check that out.
Oh yeah, I like that. I like the front bumper. It's been leveled. It's got a leveling kit, which is a necessity.
34,991, 77.
I think I may have saw this last night.
Dude, 77,000 miles.
Yeah. Look at that skid plate when I can take it out to the dunes and really get some work done.
Okay, show's over, everybody. Trying to be a nice guy here. Show Nick a nice
you got to send that to me. I'll be like, hey, will you guys take 31?
Dude, they have a. I mean, if you want a higher miler, 77,000 miles, I think it's pretty good for a 2013.
Hell yeah.
Here, hold on, real quick. I think there's one more.
They got that red color. Yeah.
Yep, they got this one right here for 28. It's got 143 though, double the miles.
Hey, that bumper would have to be pulled off, and it hasn't been leveled. Yeah, I don't like that bumper.
I do like the color though.
Yeah. No, that red has always been a good color for the Raptor. Yes. Always.
So those are the two I saw. I'm like, man, that white one just seems very tasty.
So yeah, look, I mean, to kind of finish the podcast, we're going to have this. We don't know if it's going to be a series. I'm just going to share times that I think it's interesting to be in an auction.
Hmm.
But look, if I'm going to start approaching $28,000 to get what I want, do I go back to the thing I ultimately wanted to experience, which is the Gen 1 Raptor, right?
Yes.
So you have to have that conversation, and this is what we want to share with people: is patience is on my side. Would I like to get something, before the end of January? There's no question. But I'm not going to just pull the trigger on something because I don't think that's when you win in the business.
Yeah.
Right? So that's kind of what I want people to see is like, hey man, it's okay to lose an auction. You don't have to just go, I love this car. Now, if money's no object, which at times I'm in auctions where guys, employ me to go, money's no object. That's a different conversation. But I think most of us want to, find something we like and do it at a price that we're looking to pay.
Yeah, so again, that video is going to drop on Christmas Day. You'll be able to binge it after you're done opening gifts, and then you're going to watch in between NFL commercials and then ignore your family for the rest of the day. Watch
Yeah.
this video because I've never followed an auction like that. I've never really had a purpose to go myself and like be a part of an auction. But to see Nick do it, I was enthralled as I was editing it and putting it together because towards the end of that, you kind of explained how some of it started to seem like money kind of wasn't an object. Like the prices really started to go up.
The guy or the gal really wanted it. And as soon as you get somebody in the building, so for those who have never been to a live auction, you see this. You see it in person.
Yeah.
So it happens exponentially online, in my opinion, is what we see, is they go, I want this. I like this color. This is what I've been looking for. Now money's no object. Now maybe money is an object to them, but their brain inside the auction's like, because I've seen things like completely melt down in person where people have just gone so high, and then I've heard two people next to me saying, we don't have the money to pay for what we just bid on. Like I've like witnessed that a bunch in my life. And I tell people this all the time, like, if you've never watched it, you don't know how bad a decision people can make in an auction setting. And that's why a lot of dealers go out of business, because they buy things at auction. They don't know how to really keep their emotions in check. So, and again, I do try to explain, and I'll get better at those videos. I know that I bounce around, but you got to realize when you're in an auction, you need to bounce around.
Yeah.
Your brain needs to bounce around. You need to have some feel for what's going on. And so we'll share more of that stuff, and hopefully people like it.
All right. Well, happy holidays to everybody. Merry Christmas. And we'll see you guys for the last show of this year next Friday, which will drop on the 30th of December. And that'll be 2024, dude.
Awesome, man. Talk to you guys soon.
See ya.